economics of independence. He actually said the economics of independence. The fact that you can't pronounce the word economics doesn't mean that you don't know a whole lot about it, I guess. But how do we know that Nicky Clark thinks this? The BBC told us. The BBC interviewed them and then broadcast it. They haven't asked me. I got a C grade in economics in 1968. Top of the class. Grangemouth High School. Grangemouth High School? No, not gonna, there's nobody here from Grangemouth. Fair enough. Fine, yeah, okay. But, so, we know from that, and as you know, all the other warnings we know because the BBC faithfully, faithful to the first B in their name, report to us on and over and over. So first thing in the morning, if you're driving to work, Good Morning Scotland will tell you there's a warning coming from the First Sea Lord. The First Sea Lord telling you the Navy's in despair. If Scotland withdraws, NATO collapses. Now, I knew Scottish soldiers were tough, but I didn't know we were holding the whole thing together. The whole security of the West seems to be the case. So we know from the repetition. At 6 o'clock, Sally or Jackie come on and tell us there's a warning coming from the First Sea Lord or from George Robertson, no relation. And then at 6:15, you get the warning again. 6:30, you get the warning not to switch off before reporting Scotland. You get the warnings coming again. Then you get the warning, then you get Brian Taylor telling us why it's such an important warning. And then the headlines at the end, after the weather, you get the headline again, and so on throughout the day. The constant barrage of negative news with very rare positive news. Now, I did some research. Until 2 years ago, I didn't do any research into media in Scotland. I was researching mainly the Western media's coverage of the Arab War and the kind of biases that led up to the excuses made about the Iraq War, that kind of thing. But I turned in the last couple of years thinking it would be interesting to look at the coverage of the Scottish referendum. Naively, I thought Scotland would be different. I thought our media are a bit closer to us. We can throw stones at them if they come out. I thought they wouldn't be biased. I really did. I thought Scotland's different. But I got a very sharp shock. I did my research, I did it scientifically, I showed bias. I sent it to the BBC and they blew up. A man who is a visiting professor at Glasgow University in market research, it's not the same, market research, said that I had flawed methodology. If you Google on the internet, flawed methodology research, you'll find that just about everybody thinks everybody else's research has got a flawed methodology. It's just what you say when you haven't got the energy to prove it wrong. Okay, so I think it's got better this time. I kept getting interrupted by the first time by people saying I can't hear you. So I'm surprised. I would have thought they would have liked that. In my lectures, students never say we can't hear you. They just continue to snore. This is the biggest class I've had. But if educational reforms south of the border go ahead, this will be a typical primary classroom, roughly speaking, I would think. One teacher, all of you. Doing quite well without the notes. Yeah. When you're watching Jackie and got her name already, Jackie and Sally, with the same bad news night after night, it starts to become a parody. It doesn't seem real. And you think, one of these nights, their face is going to crack, and they're going to say, guffaw, and say, only kidding. That's stuff. We haven't really got a First Sea Lord. George Robertson isn't really alive anymore. We just made it up. But it doesn't happen. Despite that, support for the Yes campaign grows, and you're all here today in considerable numbers, scaring me to death. Is that called rabble-rousing? I'm an academic, you know, I don't do rabble-rousing. People fall asleep to me, that's the rule. Not today, okay. Right. Okay, what did I find in the research? The research is online, you can see it's at Newsnet Scotland. It's also at the University of the Best of Scotland website. Some of the critics said, University of the West of Scotland, is that a real university? Professor Robertson, is he a real professor? Can anyone get to be a professor today, they said? These are people who obviously got third class honours from Edinburgh. apologies if you've got that in the group. So first I found a tendency to report bad news. You all knew this. It only took a bean counter like me to kind of prove it. But you kind of proved it to yourself anyway, I think, by watching the news night after night. I think you all knew the way things were going. And the bias has gone into overdrive in recent weeks. It's not better now, it's worse than it was when I was doing the research. That's really disappointing. So very, very little evidence of good news. Did you know recent research by the same company that who's the professor in Strathclyde source on the telly? Curtis, Professor Curtis, always on the telly. His group did research into satisfaction with the health service in Scotland and the health service in England in the last few days. It was on the Open Democracy website and I don't think reported. It showed that satisfaction with the Scottish NHS is climbing quite dramatically, and in England, where it's been privatised, it's falling. Couldn't Sally or Jackie have told us about that with a big grin on their faces? The second thing, yes, a tendency to use allegedly independent research. The idea that the Treasury are not biased. The Office for Budget Responsibility, set up by George Osborne, not biased, independent. Best of all, Oxford Economics. Now I work in Paisley, Ayr and Hamilton. I don't work in Oxford, clearly. Oxford Economics, they must be. They're called Oxford Economics, not called Paisley, Ayr and Hamilton Economics. So they must know them. They provided the report for the Weir Group, who I think of as Weir Pumps. I just like the sound of that better. Did they do anything apart from pumps anyway? Weir Pumps, using Oxford Economics research, showed that the independence would cost a fortune for everybody. Jobs would be lost right, left and centre. Oxford Economics, their research was undertaken by the Washington-based Institute for Financial Research. Now they're based in Washington, surely that's even better. And they said, wait a minute, they said that the Oxford Economics Group relies on basic misunderstandings and is completely misleading. That's worse than flawed methodology, right? Well, that's right, we heard that. Somebody just said Scotland is the best education, the most educated population. I'm not sure if it means the best education system, but it means more people educated. So that, I'm being a nitpicker as an academic, of course. The Treasury using research from Professor Dunleavy of London School of Economics, again, they must be good, London School of Economics, they gave a PhD to Gaddafi's son. Stop me. It cost £1 million, so it must be a good PhD. He paid a PhD. Now, the Professor Dunleavy has come out several times to complain that the government are misinterpreting his research. And he said, he said that their understanding of his research was bizarrely inaccurate. That's even again. I've never been described as bizarrely inaccurate. Just bizarre. Maybe there we go. Okay, so you can't rely on independent research. There isn't such a thing. My research is biased. But I've done my best to reduce the bias level. Some of these organisations who won't admit the bias, it's worse, as I said, because they can feel it. Third, tendency for interviewers to give a hard time to yes supporters and an easy time to no supporters. Now, I'm not trying to toady with the women here, but the treatment of Nicola Salmond on Good Morning Scotland contrasts quite markedly with the treatment. Shame, yeah. It did make me, I thought there's something about this. Two guys really interrupting, stressing, harassing somebody who knows their facts, and then going and interviewing George Robertson and treating him like a deranged but vulnerable uncle. Never asking him a hard question. Or interviewing the Weir Pumps. Or interviewing Weir Pumps. Hayley Miller interviewed Weir Pumps.